Hey everyone, you have a quiz this week. Should be pretty simple, pretty straightforward, pretty easy way to get 25 points. You have 2 attempts for it, and it is located here in Unit 1 in Blackboard, down here at the bottom where it says Quiz, Transitions, Subordinators, and Concessions. So before you take that, and that's due Friday by the end of the day, I want to talk about these 3 things: transitions, subordinators, concessions. Some of you have already worked through this assignment here, where you are just finding examples of subordinators. So this Google Doc is the transition words one. It's also linked down here, transitions and subordinators, those joining words. So I want to talk about transitions, subordinators, and concession language. So I have these 2 documents, concessions, transitions, open already. We're going to look at transitions first. So coordinators, not really going to talk about those because honestly you all already know about them. Even if you don't know you know about them. You've been doing this since, I don't know, 2nd grade. It's just comma and, right, comma, but, comma, or comma, yet. So you already know this, but more importantly, it works to connect 2 complete sentences. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. Transitional expressions also connect 2 complete sentences, but these words are much more dramatic. They need a period or a semicolon before, and they need a comma after. Right, so with coordinators, it can just be comma and the word and. Right, but down here, something like therefore or instead, you can start a sentence with those, and these are their own sentences. So this is 2 complete sentences with the word therefore or instead or whatever that transition is. So you have to use a period, the word, and a comma, or semicolon, the word, right? So we're paying close attention to detail here, not capitalized, and comma. Okay. So one way that we're not going to really look at yet in this unit, but you feel free to use this, is sometimes they can just interrupt the sentence. So something like car, for example, argues that we are losing our ability to think deeply due to online reading and distractions, or whatever the sentence is. But we're going to focus on the A and the B here. So can connect 2 complete sentences. Subordinators, this is the other thing that we're looking at. So these will make your sentence incomplete. Seems like something maybe you perhaps wouldn't want, but a lot of times these are really helpful words. So something like this, if we delete because, right, so that's a subordinator, because. So let's say we delete this, and we just look at the first half of this whole sentence. So privacy changes our behavior. That alone is actually a complete sentence. Privacy changes our behavior, period. But if we put because before it, now it's incomplete, right? Because privacy changes our behavior, and you're waiting, right? You're waiting to hear what I'm going to say after that. These tend to be kind of cause and effect type words that often answer questions like where, when, why, how, that kind of thing, right? So we need to evaluate the laws that allow spying and information gathering. Well, why? Oh, because privacy changes our behavior. So it's the answer to a question that is sort of implicitly raised in this sentence here. Right. Okay, so let's look at a couple samples, because with these the best way is sometimes just to jump into it and try it. So if we look at 2 sentences, 2 complete sentences, we can join them with a transition or we can join them with a subordinator, right? So I'm going to look at my transitions and think about which one could work to join these sentences. Facts seem like the best way to persuade people. Emotional connections and identity tend to be more successful. So maybe like a however, just keep it simple with a however could work there. Okay, so let's do that. So I can do period, capital H, however, with a comma, make this lowercase e, and now I have it joined with a transition. So that's one way. I could also do lowercase h with a semicolon. Okay, so a semicolon works just like a period, except the reason for a semicolon is to show there's a strong connection between the two complete sentences. But semicolons work like a period. They connect only to complete sentences. Okay, so those are my options there. How about subordinators then? So we can also join these two sentences with a subordinator. So we can look at some of the examples here, possible subordinators. I like maybe even though or although. So something like, how about this? Although facts seem like the best way to persuade people, right? And so that's not a complete sentence, right? So we cannot use a period or a semicolon, so I use a comma. Comma, emotional connections and identity tend to be more successful. Right, so I hope that kind of sort of makes sense as a quick crash course. Right, so both of these also tend to be used as a part of concessions. So concessions are those words that allow you to politely say, oh yeah, I totally hear where you're coming from, but you're still wrong. Right, so it's words like admittedly or naturally or of course. Right, while it's true, part of it's true, the overall issue is still this other thing. Right, so we can even see transition words popping up in here. However, subordinators, while, right, with the comma at the end of that clause, while it seems harmless to do something, comma, this is why it's actually totally not harmless. Okay, so with concessions, they can be with a subordinator sometimes. They can be just as with a transition, okay, full sentence, transition word. Sometimes it can be even be kind of a mixture of both, and even coordinators, a comma but, right? So these don't necessarily have to have one of those types of joining words. Sometimes they don't, but they often do. So I'm combining this in your quiz. So you will need to think about using a transition successfully in a concession, using a subordinator successfully in a concession, as well as just using transition words and subordinators correctly in general. It's multiple choice, it's pretty straightforward. I think you guys are going to be okay. Doubt there should be any huge issues. If there are, shoot me an email and I will answer your questions. All right, so for that quiz, you're allowed to use any of these resources, as well as any other resources you find online. The only resource you cannot use is another human being or having another human sit in front of your computer and take that quiz for you. You have to obviously take it yourself. All right, that's it for now. Talk to you guys later.